Is it time for yet another war of our time in our time? How much is too much to meet and greet Justin Bieber? Would you go to Charlie Sheen's house for a Tupperware party? For November 20th, 2015, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in the land of the confused bees and trees, Cranston, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For November 20th, 2015, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. Pig and sheep are off this week. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. As you may have heard, last Friday there was a collection of attacks in Paris, resulting in about 130 deaths. Attacks in Nigeria, Lebanon, and the downing of the Russian jet outside Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt also have raised attention, although, as you might imagine, the world's press is not sending its biggest name reporters to Yola, Nigeria. They're going to Beirut. Paris. Apparently, credible claims of responsibility for the Paris and Beirut attacks have come from ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, IS, whereas the Nigerian attacks appear to be the work of Boko Haram, which, as far as I can tell, is like saying that the Firebird is made by Pontiac and the Camaro is made by Chevy. The hacktivist group Anonymous has declared total war on ISIS. ISIS responded by calling the group idiots. As someone who got bullied as a kid a lot, just about the worst thing you can do when faced with an enemy who at first glance appears to be able to crush you with his thumb, is to taunt him with names like idiot. ISIS also appears to be underestimating what Anonymous may bring to the fight. ISIS leaders have given out such useful instructions as, do not make your email same as your username on Twitter. This mistake cost many Ansar their accounts, and the Kufar published their IP, so be careful. Yeah, and don't make your password, idiot. Former Florida governor and political fog machine Jeb Bush was a guest recently on MSNBC's Morning Joe show. When asked what he would do as president, he said that he would enlist political and Muslim leaders from around the region and build a single U.S.-led fighting force to take out ISIS and to deal with Assad as well. This is the war of our time, and we cannot do this by leading from behind. This requires American leadership. It doesn't require us to be the world's policemen, but we do need to lead, and we're not doing that right now. So, Jeb, let me understand this. The wars your brother started that we're still kind of fighting and not at all winning are not wars of our time? Any thoughts, Jeb, for what you're going to do about the existing fights we're still in? No? Yeah, thanks for playing. While the gunshots and bomb blasts of the recent attacks were still echoing through the streets of Paris, the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, which, as you may recall, suffered its own attack at the hands of Islamist terrorists less than a year ago, chose to flip ISIS the bird yet again with the taunting cover headline, "They have the weapons, fuck them, we have the champagne." Compared to the U.S. response to 9/11, that's some balls right there. Lindsay Miller of Lowell, Massachusetts, a member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, has been allowed to wear a strainer on her head for her driver's license photo as an expression of her religious beliefs. Raw men, Massachusetts. Raw men. On his recent tour, Justin Bieber's meet and greet tickets have reached a price level which has induced fans to complain but not completely boycott this entertainment opportunity. So, America? And in squirrel news, 2 Tampa, Florida Great Danes were taunted mercilessly by a squirrel romping unconcerned on an outdoor archway of the dog's owner's home. The family's cat looked on from inside the house with typical disdain. It's a great face, but it's never been to China. Up next, some windbag being windy, defeated undefeatable, and the changing face of winning!
Whether you prefer post-industrial vampire trance music or neo-gothic nerdcore speed thrash, Royal Records is the record store for you! Royal Records has albums and cassettes from many of your favorite artists, including The Letterman, The Righteous Brothers, The Insane Clown Posse, The Slipknots, and The 9 Inch Nails. No matter your taste, you'll find the records and tapes you love at Royal Records, Main Street, downtown. Open weekdays from 10 to 4.
I have an idea, and I don't know if it's a good one. There's a lot of implications to consider, and I have not mulled through them all. I thought maybe you'd like a chance to throw stones at this idea, see how well it stands up to the scrutiny of others. Please comment below if you have any thoughts on this. Now, rather than going into Iraq and Syria and Libya and so on, with cruise missiles and drones raining flaming death on decent people and lunatics alike, how about this? We put together an elite international force of people whose job it is to employ only non-lethal means to quickly and efficiently capture the bad guys, no matter what their religion. Christian, Muslim, Jew, Sikh, Hindu, don't care. Gender and age are of no consequence. From heads of state to street preachers. If you're a vocal religious fundamentalist who's causing problems for other people, you're a target. You take all these people and you put them in a single open population facility from which there is no escape. Perhaps it could be made from a disused sports arena or something, with a few modifications. You feed them regularly with good nutritious food, of course paying no attention to religious dietary restrictions. Provide them with clean water and sanitation and a means for reasonable hygiene, and books. Tons and tons of books. And if they burn the books or in some other way damage or destroy them, just keep sending in more books. Books on science, philosophy, medicine, physiology, the care, feeding, and maintenance of hedgehogs, almost anything. The only books that are off limits are books that make up the core doctrine of any established recognized religion, and any related, clearly derivative works promoting the base text of a religion, and any books that promote pseudoscientific woo, such as the works of Deepak Chopra. First of all, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims are all going to have to find a way to cooperate or compete for resources, space, bathroom time, etc. Now, the way I understand Darwin, he suggests that the most aggressive among these will be the ones who succeed, and the meekest among them will be the ones at a disadvantage. But what if you had constant surveillance and swift, summary, non-lethal, but remarkably uncomfortable and incapacitating punishment for violators of the rules? Like the way their gods are supposed to work, but for real. And you don't even have to tell them what the rules are. They'll figure it the fuck out in a hurry. See, if you did this in a modern sports stadium, you'd already be at a tremendous advantage because those places are built to be surveilled. Second, with all of their basic needs covered, food, shelter, sanitation, etc., they're going to have some free time on their hands. Now, surely, some of the most disgruntled will use that time to sharpen toothbrush handles for stabbing of rivals. Well, they're being watched, and either the sharpening or the stabbing will bring on the ow, 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 I can't move! I'm sure some will formulate escape plans, more of the same. Some, possibly many, will use the time to read books. They're the ones who get favor from above. The ones who talk out their differences are the ones who don't get zapped. I wonder how many days it would take before most of the aggressive ones ditch their fundamentalist attitudes and, out of sheer pragmatism, adopt a mode of behavior more in line with modern rational nonviolent discourse and begin to persuade their compatriots that this is much better than being zapped all the time. Part of the problem with going up against people who believe there are rewards in the afterlife for those who die for the cause is that the thought or anticipation of death in fighting for the cause instills no negative emotion, except possibly when one is at death's door, the deed is done, and nothing can be done to undo it. This in microcosm is the way evolution deals with the older members of a population. Once you're done breeding and raising your young, it doesn't matter one whit what happens to you. Your organs can all move around and change function and grow tumors and spray juices and all over the place. Your evolutionary function is served, and now you're just a competitor for resources. If you're a suicide bomber and you've successfully set off your bomb and then have a moment of clarity just before you die, that does no one any good. The trick is to have the moment of clarity before you strap on the vest. The facility previously described would remove people with a demonstrated tendency to make life miserable for other people based on superstitious nonsense from the normal, free, marginally sensible population and isolate them together such that they have to work it out and actually suffer consequences in this world for being an asshole. And just for a little added benefit for the rest of us, this facility could be set up in a country that's recently hosted the Olympics or the World Cup and now has a bunch of expensive, unused sports venues just rotting away. These countries could recoup some, possibly all, of those expenses by operating these detention facilities as a paid service to the other nations of the world. I mean, really, what's the alternative? A couple choices come to mind pretty quickly. First, the aforementioned raining flaming death from the sky model, which we've been doing for about 25 years and hasn't really seemed to pacify the disgruntled religious types. The collective attitude of the religious extremists seems to echo a motto that Jay Leno used when he shilled for Doritos. Crunch all you want, we'll make more. Second, just pulling out of the Middle East completely. No humanitarian aid, no military aid or intervention, no commerce, nothing. Sure, we'd have to work a little magic to achieve energy independence, but we have to do that anyway. And with the money that we'd save by not maintaining military forces in the Middle East, we could probably do that with little or no additional expenditure. The problem with this model is twofold. First, it does nothing to contain the problem where it is. Second, it will likely lead to a humanitarian crisis far worse than what's already going on, with even more refugees fleeing oppressive religiously based regimes and millions of people living in regions far too arid to sustain them without products and technology from the outside world. If centuries of war have any lesson to teach us, I think a big one, possibly the biggest one, is this. Unless you're committed as a society to doing whatever it takes, literally as a nation, complete the mission or die trying, there's no point in committing to military action. In World War II, the United States committed societally to total war in the face of a serious and potentially existential threat. Then we got to Korea. Vietnam? Grenada, Panama, boring. First Gulf War. Well, we had a very limited goal facing an uncommitted enemy. Comparative cakewalk. The Balkans? Mixed results, not a clear victory. Somalia? Fail. Afghanistan? Fail. Iraq? Fail. You see a trend here? It looks to me like out of all the major military involvements the U.S. has had since, well, let's say since the turn of the last century, the only good outcomes for the United States were when the U.S. faced an existential threat, met it with a unified resolve, applied stupefying effort, delivering to the enemy not just flaming death from above, because we certainly did plenty of that in World War II, but the sense that we could and would overwhelm them. The problem with precision bombings and missile attacks is multifold. A, we look like cowards in their eyes for not facing our enemy. B, 9 times out of 10, these attacks produce collateral damage and foment elevated ill will among the witnesses and relatives of the victims. C, for every bad guy you kill, you bring some number of bad guys in potentia to maturity. D, They appear to fail to demonstrate that we have and are willing to employ relentless, indiscriminate, crushing force to extract their unconditional surrender. The pattern I see in our military adventurism in Afghanistan and Iraq seems to line up pretty well with the American Revolution. Think about it. We're the redcoats, all sophisticated with our uniforms and fancy modern weapons and regimented movements and bases and softened by our trucks and camelbacks. And the locals are us from 240 years ago. They're shooting from behind rocks and buildings. They don't really conform to our rules of engagement. They know the land and the people, and they're defending their homes. They have a lot more skin in the game than we do. I seem to have wandered off topic a little. Maybe I should wrap this up. I remain unconvinced that U.S. military involvement in Syria or directly on the ground against ISIS will produce any better results than we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think another strategy is in order for dealing with the threats posed by the various factions in the Middle East. Winning hearts and minds is laudable in theory, but hoping to achieve this end through so-called limited war, especially given the track record of limited war, is the very definition of insanity. It is half measures and appears to achieve nothing positive. Further, I don't think we have the political will within the United States or among our allies for total war. We face a no-win scenario. We are playing out the Kobayashi Maru right now. Maybe after 2 failed attempts, the time has come to change the conditions of the test. Right now, we're just throwing money and lives down the garbage disposal of history, and it's a damn shame. I told them a story. You play games, I told them a story. Still to come, there's a confused wind blowing out of Alaska, and it can be hard to keep a positive outlook with all that money.
For your upcoming wedding, bat mitzvah, or funeral, trust the professionals at Blas Florist to create the perfect mood-appropriate arrangement. Your special occasion will be so much more special with a Blas Florist arrangement. Blas will help your memories be that much more memorable. Call or click today to order your unique and not at all sexually suggestive arrangement from Blas Florist. Blas, the florist you shouldn't fear.
And now, here's Moose Weintraub with a Sports Half Minute.
Weintraub Sports Half Minute. It's a whole half minute of sports. 30 seconds of sports. Who's a Weintraub Sports Half Minute?
This is your Sports Half Minute. I'm Moose Weintraub. Holly Holm decked Ronda Rousey in the 2nd round. Comic book adaptations seem inevitable.
Who's a Weintraub Sports Half Minute?
Thanks, Moose. Always a great report from Moose. One-time vice presidential hopeful and former governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin, was recently interviewed about her daughter, abstinence-only advocate and out-of-wedlock baby factory Bristol Palin, and her recently announced 2nd out-of-wedlock pregnancy. Tracy Smith, the CBS correspondent who interviewed Palin, asked, "Bristol is pregnant again. That can't be how you saw this playing out, unmarried and pregnant again." To which Palin responded, "Heck no, because being a single mom is, oh my goodness, my heart goes out to the single parents, but my enormous admiration for what they're able to accomplish doing double duty. And I watch Bristol do double duty all the time with her little boy Trip. I can't wait for about 45 more days and I'm going to have a little baby granddaughter, and I'm happy about it." When asked whether her newfound attitude runs counter to everything she stands for, Palin said, "Well, the cool thing about putting your faith in God is He certainly is a God of second chances, and third and fourth and fifth chances." She then drew a parallel to the second chance that came after the disastrous McCain-Palin run for the White House in 2008, blaming the view that they lost the election on semantics, preferring to view their performance as coming second out of 2. That's a level of optimism that makes Barney the dinosaur look like Bill Hicks. And given the choice between Palin, Barney, and Bill Hicks, I'd rather have Bill Hicks in the White House, even after all he's been through up to this point. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? The ongoing personal implosion that is Charlie Sheen has reached a new height? Depth? I don't know. Dimension? Astral plane? Charlie Sheen has announced that he is HIV positive and was diagnosed as such about 4 years ago. Sheen claims to have paid out millions of dollars in hush money to people he had let in on his little confidence. How is it that Charlie Sheen could have lived the extravagant, highly medicated, and irresponsible lifestyle he has thus far, then to have paid millions in extortion, to say nothing of all the fines and medical expenses and property damage and so on, and still be living in a Malibu beach house? It's beyond me. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, you can submit your story tips online at newsundies.com or on Twitter with the hashtag NUSTip. NewsUndies is normally a weekly show, but we'll be off next week for the Thanksgiving holiday. We hope you are too, and it's a good one. We'll be back on Friday, December 4th with fresh undies. If you like this video, please like this video. If you like the show, please spread the word. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, circle us on Google+, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, ignore us on MySpace, tell your friends, and buy NewsUndies Kitsch at newsundies.com. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at NewsUndies, until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be searching for the antidote to tryptophan. I'm pretty sure such a thing doesn't exist. And I can search all I want. Yeah. I just want to tell you good luck. We're all counting on you.